In a naval training facility on a cold morning, a 68-year-old janitor mopped floors in silence. A decorated SEAL veteran with 22 years of combat service. One day, while finishing his morning rounds, a group of young recruits spotted his faded tattoo and started mocking him. They called it fake. What those recruits didn't know was that a Master Chief was watching from across the hall, and his one phone call was about to change the fate of old man and young recruits in few hours. And what happened next would teach them the hardest lesson of their lives. Before we dive in, tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? Ray Donovan was on his knees scrubbing a scuff mark near the vending machines when the first recruit spotted his tattoo. The eagle, anchor, and trident were faded to blue-gray. The lines softened by decades, but the image was unmistakable to anyone who knew what they were looking at. "Yo, check it out," the recruit said, elbowing his buddy. "Janitor's got a SEAL tat." 3 more recruits gathered fresh from morning PT, still riding the high of week 4 at Great Lakes. One of them laughed. "No way that's real." "Probably bought it at a truck stop," another said. $50 and a case of beer." Ray kept scrubbing. His weathered hands moved steadily, methodically. He was 68, lean and quiet. The kind of man who'd learned long ago that some fights aren't worth having. The first recruit crouched down, phone out. "Hey, old-timer, where'd you really get that ink?" "Bay," Ray looked up slowly. His eyes were calm, gray as winter steel. He said nothing. "Come on, man," the recruit pressed, grinning for his friends. "Just admit it's fake. Stolen valor's a crime, you know." 30 feet away, Master Chief Hernandez stood in the hallway, coffee cup frozen halfway to his lips. His jaw tightened. He'd seen that tattoo before. Not the design, but the wear. The kind of fading that came from salt water, sun, and decades of silence. He set down his coffee and reached for his phone. Ray Donovan had been mopping floors at Naval Station Great Lakes for 3 years. He arrived at 5 a.m. every morning, signed in with base security using his retired military ID, and moved through the recruit training buildings with the kind of efficiency that came from muscle memory, older than most of the trainees he passed. He was a ghost in gray, coveralls. Invisible, the recruits who flooded these halls each cycle were a different breed now, confident in ways he hadn't been at 19, louder, quicker to assume they understood the world because they'd survived a few weeks of push-ups and drill. They looked at Ray and saw exactly what he appeared to be. An old man pushing a mop, killing time until retirement checks ran out. They didn't see the way he squared every corner. The way he straightened the flag in the corridor each morning before anyone else arrived. His movements precise, reverent. The way he never walked through a formation, always around it, even when it added 50 yards to his route. Master Chief Hernandez had noticed. He'd watched Ray for 2 years before he finally asked the admin clerk to pull his file. What he found made him go quiet for a long time. After that, Hernandez made sure Ray had access to the gym after hours, that his paycheck never got delayed, that the junior staff treated him with basic decency, but Hernandez couldn't be everywhere. The newest cycle of recruits had arrived 4 weeks ago, 73 of them ages 18 to 24. They'd passed the initial shock of basic training and entered that dangerous middle phase. Comfortable enough to get cocky, not experienced enough to know better. Petty Officer Second Class Vance was supposed to be supervising them during breaks. He was 28, prior enlisted who'd taken an instructor billet to pad his eval before putting in for advancement. He had a habit of scrolling his phone while the recruits milled around, as long as nobody got hurt or missed formation. Ray had been emptying trash cans in the common area when the comments started. At first it was just looks, whispers. Then one recruit, a tall kid from Texas named Morrison, got bold. "That's sad, man. Dude's like 70 and still cleaning up after us." His friend laughed. Probably couldn't hack it anywhere else. Ray kept working. He'd learned decades ago that some people needed to talk. It didn't cost him anything to let them. But Morrison wasn't done. He stepped closer, eyes on the tattoo that showed every time Ray reached for a high shelf or stretched to wipe down a window. "Yo, Pops, that ink real?" Ray glanced at him, said nothing. Moved to the next trash can. Morrison grinned at his buddies. "I'll take that as a no." Petty Officer Vance looked up from his phone, shrugged, looked back down. The common area went quiet in the way that meant something ugly was building. Morrison's voice carried across the common area like he wanted an audience. "Seriously, where'd you get that tat, old man?" "Pawn shop, thrift store?" Two more recruits pulled out their phones. One snapped a photo of Ray's forearm as he bent to tie off a trash bag. Another started typing, grinning. "Gonna post this to the group chat. Stolen Valor spotted at Great Lakes." Ray straightened slowly, pulled the bag free, and walked toward the exit. His face showed nothing. No anger, no shame, no acknowledgement. Just the same quiet focus he'd carried for 3 years. "Dude won't even defend himself," someone muttered. "Because he can't," Morrison said louder now. "Fake ink, fake story. Probably tells everyone at the VFW he was a war hero." Laughter rippled through the group. 6 recruits now circled loose near the vending machines, feeding off each other's energy the way young men do when they think they've found weakness. Petty Officer Vance glanced up from the corner where he'd been scrolling Instagram. He watched for 5 seconds, shook his head, looked back down. Just old guy hazing. Not worth the paperwork. Ray returned with a fresh trash bag. He moved through the room like the recruits weren't there. Liners snapping into place with the same precision he'd used to rig parachutes 40 years ago. Muscle memory didn't fade. It just waited. "Hey, maybe he's a janitor because he got kicked out," another recruit offered. "Bad conduct discharge or something." "That would explain it," Morrison said, nodding like he'd solved a mystery. "Couldn't cut it. Bought some ink to look cool. Now he's stuck mopping floors." 10 minutes later, during a scheduled hydration break, one of the recruits fumbled a Gatorade bottle. It hit the tile and exploded, bright orange liquid spraying across 15 feet of corridor. The group erupted in laughter. Petty Officer Vance sighed. "Someone get the janitor," Morrison grinned. "Yo, Pops, got a job for you." Ray appeared from the supply closet with a mop and bucket. No expression, no hesitation. He set the bucket down and began soaking up the spill, while recruits stood in a loose semicircle. Some still laughing, others recording. "Man, this is sad," one of them said, not even trying to whisper. "Should have stayed in school." "Gramps, if respect is earned by how we treat everyone, comment respect." Ray wrung the mop, dipped it again. The orange stain lifted in slow passes. He worked with the same deliberate care he gave everything. No shortcuts, no complaints. The kind of discipline that didn't need an audience. Morrison stepped closer. Close enough that Ray had to pause. "All right, real talk. What did you actually do to earn that tattoo? 'Cause I'm calling it right now. You didn't do anything. You're a fake." The corridor went still. Ray looked up. His eyes were calm, gray, unreadable. He held Morrison's stare for 3 long seconds, then returned to mopping without saying a word. Morrison laughed, but it sounded forced now. "Yeah, that's what I thought." 30 feet down the hall, Master Chief Hernandez stood outside his office, phone already in his hand, jaw locked tight. He'd heard enough. Master Chief Hernandez had seen a lot in 26 years. He'd seen good men break under pressure, and weak men find strength they didn't know they had. He'd seen disrespect before, plenty of it. But this was different. This was ignorance wrapped in cruelty, and it was happening to a man who deserved better. He stepped into the corridor, his boots echoing on the tile. Morrison was still talking, emboldened by his audience when Hernandez moved closer and caught a clear view of Ray's forearm as he wrung the mop. The tattoo wasn't just a trident. There were dates beneath it, small, precise numbers that told a story if you knew how to read them. And along the edge, barely visible through the fading ink, unit insignia that hadn't been used in over 2 decades. Hernandez felt something cold settle in his chest. Recognition. Then anger. Then something close to shame that he hadn't stepped in sooner. He pulled his phone from his pocket and walked 10 paces down the hall, voice low but firm. "Sir, this is Master Chief Hernandez at Building 7. You need to come here, now." A pause. "Yes, sir. I understand you're in a briefing. Sir, with respect, this cannot wait." Another pause. Hernandez glanced back at Ray, still mopping, still silent. "It's about Master Chief Petty Officer Donovan." "Retired SEAL, yes, sir. That Donovan." He ended the call and turned back toward the common area. His voice cut through the laughter like a blade. "All recruits, freeze. Right where you are." The room went silent. Morrison's grin faltered. "Nobody moves. Nobody leaves. You stand exactly where you are until I say otherwise." "Master Chief." "We didn't—" Morrison started. "I don't remember asking you to speak." Crute, Petty Officer Vance straightened, suddenly aware he'd missed something critical. 3 miles away, at the base command center, Rear Admiral Klein grabbed his cover and walked toward the exit. His aide scrambled to follow. "Sir, the captain's brief." "Tell the captain I'll reschedule." Klein's voice was flat. "Get my car, now." A black SUV pulled out of the lot 60 seconds later, trailed by a second vehicle. Back in Building 7, Hernandez approached Ray, voice quiet. "Master Chief, you can take a break. I've got this." Ray shook his head, kept mopping. "Floors don't clean themselves, Master Chief." Hernandez didn't push. He just stood there, arms crossed, watching the recruits squirm in the silence they'd created. The sound of tires on asphalt carried through the open doors of Building 7. 2 black SUVs rolled to a stop in front of the main entrance. No lights, no sirens, just the kind of quiet arrival that meant someone important had decided something mattered. The rear door of the first vehicle opened. Rear Admiral Klein stepped out in service dress blues, ribbons stacked 4 rows deep across his chest. A captain followed, then 2 security personnel in crisp utilities. They moved with purpose, not haste. Inside, the recruits stood frozen where Master Chief Hernandez had left them. Morrison's face had gone pale. Petty Officer Vance looked like he wanted to disappear into the tile. The door swung open. Admiral Klein entered, his eyes sweeping the room once before locking onto Ray. The Admiral walked directly past the recruits as if they were furniture. His steps were measured, deliberate. He stopped 3 feet in front of the man still holding a mop. Then he came to attention and rendered a salute. Slow, precise, held. Ray blinked. For the first time all morning, something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe? Or recognition. He set the mop against the wall, straightened to his full height, and returned the salute with the kind of sharpness that doesn't fade no matter how many years pass. "Master Chief Petty Officer Donovan," Admiral Klein said, his voice carrying across the silent room. Ray's hand dropped. "Sir, I apologize for the interruption. I heard there was some confusion about your service record." The Admiral's tone was calm, almost conversational, but it carried weight. "I thought it might be helpful to clarify a few things." He turned slightly, enough to address the room without taking his eyes fully off Ray. Master Chief Donovan served with Naval Special Warfare for 22 years. SEAL Team 3, SEAL Team 5, and a final tour with Development Group. 3 combat deployments to Afghanistan, 2 to Iraq, 1 to the Horn of Africa. Silver Star for actions in Ramadi. Bronze Star with Valor, Purple Heart. He paused. The tattoo you've been discussing commemorates the men he lost. 12 teammates. Their names, their dates, all of them etched into skin because some things shouldn't be forgotten. Morrison looked like he might be sick. Master Chief Donovan retired in 2021. Klein continued. He could have taken a contracting job, a consulting position, any number of things that would have paid 3 times what he makes here. Instead, he chose to work in this building. Do you know why? No one answered. Because this is where new sailors learn what it means to serve. And he wanted to be part of that, even if it meant mopping floors. He wanted to stay connected to the community that shaped him. The admiral's gaze swept across the recruits. He didn't need recognition. He didn't need thanks. He just needed to know he was still contributing. Ray's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Admiral Klein turned back to him. "Master Chief, it's an honor to see you again." "Likewise, sir." The room felt like it had run out of oxygen. Somewhere in the back, a recruit's phone clattered to the floor. No one moved to pick it up. Admiral Klein let the silence stretch for another 5 seconds before he turned to face the recruits fully. His voice didn't rise. Didn't need to. "Respect," he said, "is not something you earn by wearing a uniform. It's not something that comes with rank or ribbons or the right last name. Respect is what you give to others when you recognize that sacrifice doesn't always announce itself. That the person standing in front of you may have done things you can't imagine, endured things you'll never understand, and chosen humility over recognition." Morrison stared at the floor. His hands were shaking. "You looked at this man and saw a janitor. You saw someone beneath you. That tells me more about you than it ever could about him." Klein's disappointment was palpable, heavier than any shouting could have been. "The uniform you're wearing right now? It doesn't make you a sailor. It's a promise. And part of that promise is treating every person, every single person, with the dignity they deserve. Especially the ones who can't or won't defend themselves." He turned to Petty Officer Vance, who looked like he wanted to melt into the bulkhead. "You're reassigned, effective immediately. Report to the Command Master Chief for counseling. Your failure to intervene was a failure of leadership." Vance nodded, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Master Chief Hernandez stepped forward. "Sir, with your permission, I'd like to implement a new protocol. Every recruit cycle will receive a brief on veteran transition and the importance of recognizing service in all its forms. We'll make it part of indoctrination." "Approved," Klein said. "Make it happen." The Admiral glanced at Ray. "Master Chief, I can arrange a formal recognition ceremony if—" "No thank you, sir," Ray said quietly. "I'm good," Klein nodded. "Understood. But these recruits owe you a conversation, if you're willing." Ray looked at the young men standing frozen in front of him. He saw fear, shame, confusion. He saw himself at 19, cocky and ignorant, before the world had taught him what humility actually meant. "I'll talk to them," he said. 2 hours later, in a small classroom with the door closed, Ray sat on the edge of a desk while the recruits stood in a loose semicircle. Morrison spoke first, voice cracking. "Master Chief, I'm sorry. There's no excuse," Ray nodded. "You're right. There isn't." One by one they apologized. Some of them cried. Ray accepted each apology with the same quiet grace he'd shown while mopping floors. When they were done, he leaned forward. "Let me tell you something that might save your life someday. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most dangerous, and the uniform you're wearing today doesn't make you a warrior. How you treat people when no one's watching, that's what defines you. Remember that." They nodded, humbled and silent. Ray stood, picked up his mop from where it leaned against the wall, and walked back to work. 3 weeks passed. Ray still arrived at 500, still mopped the same floors, straightened the same flag, moved through the same corridors with the same quiet precision, but something had changed. Recruits nodded when they passed him now. Some said good morning. A few stopped to ask questions. Careful, respectful questions about deployment, about what it took to earn a trident, about how to know if you were really ready. Ray answered the ones he could, stayed quiet on the ones he couldn't. One afternoon he found a folded piece of notebook paper tucked into his supply closet. The handwriting was shaky, the words simple. "Master Chief Donovan, I'm sorry for what I said. I'll be better. Thank you for your service. Morrison." Ray read it twice, then filed it in his locker next to a faded photo of 12 men in desert camouflage. He closed the door, picked up his mop, and went back to work. Not all heroes seek the spotlight. Some just keep the floors clean and the standards high. If this story reminds you why we honor all who serve, the loud ones and the quiet ones, the decorated and the invisible, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to honor more stories of quiet valor. And in the comments, tell us, who's a veteran in your life who deserves recognition? The sun dipped low over Building 7. Ray's silhouette stood framed against the flag in the window, hand rising one more time in a salute no one else would see, fade to black.